Good morning. I'm Johar. We are really delighted and honored by Sahitya Academy's offer to have these kind of get together and a seminar in the with the concept of delivering to the Santali community the pros and cons of their culture and literature. हम आभारी है साहित्य अकादमी की. And in the absence of our founder, sir, who is busy in another very important assignment, it wouldn't have been possible for this particular seminar to be arranged without his help, without his inspiration. So, Sahitya Academy and our honorable founder, sir, Achyut Shamanta, का ये जो जोड़ हो गया, this could actually take this particular institution a long way. Again, I am grateful to Sahitya Academy for extending their hand to our institution. So we have on the dais our Madhav Kaushik, sir, President, Sahitya Academy, K. Srinivasa Rao, Secretary, Sahitya Academy, from whom you have just listened about the main motive of today's talk. Chaitanya Prasad Maji, Convener, Santali Advisory Board, Sahitya Academy, and at the same time we have Nopu Hajda, eminent Santali scholar, who is on the dais. Apart from that, we have our own registrar, sir, Prashant Kumar Rautrai, Chittaranjan Boisa, the dean of this particular school, who had been instrumental in organizing this particular seminar, and at the same time, the deans of other schools, the experts and scholars from Santali language, Santali literature and culture, who had come from all the way from different parts of the country. Namaskar and namaste to each and every one of you. And over and above everything else, our own scholars and our own students of Santali department and other tribal departments who are present here. You know, all of us take pride in the fact that we belong to KISS. KIT, KISS and KIMS, especially KISS, is a one-off sort of an institution in the entire world. I remind this to each and everyone at the beginning of any concourse, any particular congregation, because 40,000 students from primary to PG take free education with the best infrastructure of the world in this particular institution, 30,000 in the campus and 10,000 in our satellite campuses. This enterprise, this particular entrepreneurship started much, much earlier than the national education policy was in the 20th, in the end of the 20th century was even envisaged. So try to understand the vision that our founders actually had, especially in a place like Odisha. So we are delivering service out of love because we know that our roots are actually ingrained in a place which is India, Bharat Barsha. ये भारत जो है, ये तो आदिवासी का ही है. This is the people who remind us always about our own roots. No one knows what blood is running in my vein. No one can say whether I am an Aryan or I am an Adivashi. Although the very important context is this, that particular pure form of Adivashi culture and literature has undergone a lot of changes. And it is bound to take place because of the cycles of time, because of history, which has its own deterministic pattern. Way back in the 19th century, at the beginning of the 19th century, when the first colonizers came to India in order to proselytize, that means convert these people, the Indian people who are poor, who need help into their own culture, into their own religion, was a time when this particular fate of the tribal people was moving in a different direction altogether. I remember the Norwegian converters, the Norwegian Anglican Church, they had come to India in order to convert these particular poor Adivashi people living from hand to hand. But at the same time, they did some very interesting and seminal work, like translating the Bible for the first time into Santali language. Perhaps that is as much as I understand or know, is the first translation that in Santali of a foreign text, the Bible. That also has, apart from its adverse effects, had its very important seminal effect as well. And then towards the end of the 19th century, in 1890, Paul Bode created the first Roman alphabet for the writing of the Santali language. This is another very important milestone, especially when we speak about the effect of urbanization on the Santali community or the tribal community. Why? Because as long as Santali remains a language for oral communication, what happens is, with the changing scenario and urbanization, with people flocking to the cities, and even those particular consolidations where the Santali people used to live, then themselves turning from village into urban spaces. Why? A little bit of socioeconomic history will tell you best why it is. Because in Odisha, in Telangana, now Telangana, in Jharkhand, in the western part of West Bengal, all these particular places where the main consolidation of Santali people live, are very rich in minerals. And after the independence of India, with industrialization taking place, and even with the hands of the colonial government, with industrialization taking place, many of these places, which were predominant habitats of Santali people, were turned into small towns and cities for the industrial activities that started taking place. So it was bound that the Santali life is going to change. So the Santali people, their own habitats turned into urban spaces in many places, and at the same time, many Santali people, because of different socio-economic constraints, had to move from their own heartlands to flock into towns. This is the effect not only in India, but had been an effect throughout the world, which is known as Industrial Revolution or urbanization, the consequences of which came to India a little later than the European countries. So once when Santali people get uprooted and relocated from their own spaces, what happens? Their livelihoods, their professions also start changing. So the youngsters, the progeny of the Santali people, those who are not acquainted to their forefathers' culture and literature and history, might not be so familiar with their own roots. So who is going or who are going to carry forward the oral tradition? This is a very important question. So the oral tradition, if Santali remains an oral tradition, I am not discarding or gainsaying its value. It's very important what oral tradition can do. Writerly languages cannot do that. But at the same time, there is a precarious condition which was developing in the country with the change of habitat and livelihood of the Santali people. So it was very imperative at that moment that the alphabet is discovered and the Santali language is written down for future generations to understand what heritage of literature and culture they actually had, they possessed. So a great milestone or a watershed took place with P.O. Boding, with Paul Boding, and with our own Pandit Raghunath Murmu, sir. Thereafter, the things had started rolling on. The Santali people, as Srinivas Rao sir had already pointed out, had made it clear how close the Santali people are, the tribal people are, to nature. We are speaking about sustainable development goals in the world today. But these are the people of India who knew about what sustainability is much, much before the entire country, the modern civilization came to understand the need and the imperative of sustainability. So, see the kind of heritage that we bear in the form of Santali tribal literature. But at the same time, before ending up, there are a lot of delegates and experts in the language and literature. The little that I understand about this particular Adivashi language and literature is, although there is a change imperative, we cannot hold on to that pure form, but there should be a balance between tradition and modernity. If the entire thing changes, gets overhauled all at one go, then the very notion about the roots of these people, the very rich heritage of these people will be lost. But at the same time, the effects of modernity requires to be embodied and incorporated in the nuances of the tribal culture, in the nuances of tribal language and literature. Otherwise, it would be living like in a small pond without an inlet and an outlet. And then germs will germinate over there. You require a constant flow of different kinds of cultures and language into one single culture and language. That is exactly the motto with which Gurudev created his Sri Niketan, another very important place way back in 1901, in the beginning of the 20th century, the Santali notions were revived and reformed. With these words, setting the motive of today's particular Sahitya Academy's sponsored this particular seminar, thanking Sahitya Academy once more for coming all the way to hold this. This cannot be, no place can be a better place than KISS to hold such a sort of seminar. Namaste to each and all of you.